Hey BookTube, it's Jackie. How's it going? If you are new to me and this is the first time you're seeing my face, hello, what's up? Welcome to my home. I sit on my floor and I talk about books. So I hope that's why you're here, because that's what's going to be happening. If you are not new to me, thank you for always tuning in and the continued support. I really appreciate it. So today for you, I have my weekly wrap up. This is from June 5th through June 11th and all my reading shenanigans in between. And I have got a shit ton of stuff to talk about today. So without further ado, grab yourself a drink, have yourself a seat. Let's get to talking books. All right. So if you have been following me, last week I left off having started Highland Justice by Heather McCollumn. This is the third installment to the Sons of Sinclair series, and this follows our Horseman of Justice, Gideon. Gideon meets Kate. Kate robs him. Kate tries to return said coins. Gideon finds out, and Gideon imprisons her because she's a thief. He's the Horseman of Justice. Did anybody else not see that coming? Well, I didn't. Okay. I did not see that, because when I read the synopsis of this book, I really thought this was going to be more of an enemies to lovers trope. I knew the girl was going to do something wrong and force him to visualize his whole life and how he has structured and built himself up and his moralistic views and values, because that's what the other two previous installments did. But this one, I didn't see a captor-captive trope. I saw an enemies to lover trope. I saw someone duking it out, kind of like a villain, good guy, constant battle. I didn't get that. And maybe that was my problem going into this book. But nonetheless, the story went really, really well. I did enjoy it. I did give it a 3-star. However, I did give the first installment a 4 and the second installment a 3. So it's still on par for the first two installments. And this book, I was expecting more from this book. Not even gonna lie about it. I was expecting more from it because of who Gideon is. A little bit of backstory about myself. My major in college was history, and I double minored in philosophy and gender and women's studies. And my area of philosophy was ethics. I loved studying moralistic issues and both points of view. I found it extremely fascinating. So I was super pumped for this installment because he's justice, and justice is not black and white. It is a very gray area depending on motive, reasons, background, all that crap. And so I was really looking forward to this one. I was really looking forward to having more than what I got, and I didn't get it. Now, that is probably just me because of the emphasis I was putting on this book. So taking that aside, let's break this book down even further. So I've already told you that Gideon has met Kate. Kate has pickpocketed him, and Gideon has captured her and has arrested her for treason, or arrested her for theft. What I haven't told you yet is that in the process of trying to catch her, she almost kills him by accident. So she also was arrested for attempted murder. All the townspeople believe this is a farce, this is crazy, so they come to her aid and they start chanting how good of a person she is. And this really starts to sway Gideon. Gideon, who is a strict black and white rule follower, there's a rule, you break it, you suffer the punishment. I was expecting that, and I didn't get that. What I got was him actually softening and saying, oh, okay, all right, well, as her punishment, she has to put together this party because I suck at putting parties together, because nobody likes him, because he's kind of a giant asshole, essentially, because he follows all the rules to a T. He doesn't break them. He's also the one that makes all the rules. So you have that going as well. And the rest of this book, once that story is set up, is literally Kate putting Gideon in positions where he has to either go with his gut of following the rules or opening his mind to understanding that sometimes the means will justify the ends. And sometimes bad things have to be done for good things to happen. And I really, really thought, because of this dualist nature, this same side or separate side of the same coin, I was going to have more like a force against a wall. I was going to have more explosion against each other. And I didn't. I found Gideon to be the weaker of the three brothers. He bent a lot more than the other two. Now, the first installment I gave a 4, the second installment I gave a 3, and both installments, both brothers had to basically get the opposite of what they were. Cain was conquest, so he had to lose to get Ella. Joshua was war, so he had to find peace to get Kara. Gideon has to learn that justice isn't just about following the law. It's also following gut and heart and knowing what is genuinely a good thing versus a bad thing. And so you have this philosophical, moralistic undertone to this book, but it just wasn't, it wasn't strong enough for me. It wasn't conveyed enough through the characters, and Gideon didn't give me as much backbone as I thought he was going to give me. And so I still give it a 3-star though. I still give it a 3-star because there were a lot of parts of this book that I thought really worked. It's just that punch wasn't there. And what worked was a series tie-ins. They tied in awesome. I mean, I would not suggest reading this installment without reading the first 2 at all. I would not suggest it. However, I feel you will be a little bit more disappointed in this installment compared to the first 2, because the other 2 brothers just, I don't know, they just had more explosion and more, whatever that means. They just had that to me. Gideon just seemed weaker to the other 2 in comparison. I love the moralistic dilemmas that Kate put Gideon in. They definitely were areas where Gideon had to decide, do I go with what I have been raised my entire life to believe, or do I go with what seems genuinely understood and good nature? I want these people to like me as their sovereign and their lord, but at the same time, I don't want to be a tyrant because I'm not. And so he has to really learn to really balance the scales of when do you push the rules and when do you slack off. So that's where the real justice in this book comes, is Gideon's internal struggle of what to do with the moralistic situations that are given. And Heather handles those really, really well. It's just not as forceful as I'd like them to have been. I love the idea that's thread throughout this, that love and the lengths people will go through for love. Everybody knows love is one of the most strongest forces on the face of the planet. People will destroy countries for love. Henry VIII did that. All right? Did it. Tore England apart for the love of one woman. So it has been done. Love is a very, very powerful force. And I love the fact that Heather brought that to the forefront. She's saying that, despite the other 2 installments where war is very damaging, and the idea in Conquer that winning is everything and the loser gets nothing, love is just as powerful as brute force and sheer strength. So I really like the fact that she brought that to the forefront, because as a romance reader, that's one of the main things we read the books for, is the romance. And, loves kind of deal with that. So I like the fact that the love aspect was definitely brought in, but you got to see another layer of it. It wasn't just love between 2 people. It was love for people in general. And I think we need more of that in today's world. So, and I like the ending result of the justice system that Gideon finally decided on. He definitely mimicked our current justice system, where you will be judged by your peers, not just a single individual. And that's completely different than what it was in the very beginning. And I thought that was really nice that that was kind of the way it tied up at the ending. So I thought Heather pulled it out with that one. What didn't work was, this book was way too slow of a fucking burn for me. Okay? Yes, I read romance books for the romance. I also read them for the smut. All right? I do. I'm not gonna sit here and say I don't. I do. And this was hella slow. Half the book. There are 24 chapters in this book, and it was until chapter 13 that they finally hooked up. Finally. And I'm like, are you serious? Wow. That bothered me a lot, because I just was not wanting it. But there was a lot of build up to that scene, so I will give her that she was giving me that kind of teasing build up of that won't they? There's a lot of scenarios like that, so I kind of enjoyed that, but damn, that was a fucking long wait. It was. Another item that didn't work in this book was the friction and the struggle with the dualistic nature of the characters, like I said earlier. It wasn't enough for me. It was there, but it was not enough. I think this book would have benefited if there was more that. Not, that, but it probably would have helped. But more of just the two polar forces clashing against each other. I think this book would have benefited so much more from that. Just more of it. It just wasn't enough punch for me. And honestly, the very final scene just left flat because it left an unanswered question that I think could have been answered. But maybe it'll be answered in the 4th installment, which is set to come out in April of 23. So I have to wait a whole nother year for Boss's story, which is the Horseman of Death. And he's the youngest brother. And he's the one that I'm really looking forward to because I really like to see what they do with him. The sex scenes in this book, 2 chili peppers. It wasn't super spicy. I mean, half the book to get to the first sex scene. Very, very tame in the language. Extremely tame. Much tamer than the other 2 installments. The other 2 installments, they weren't very graphic in the language, but there was more of the language. There was like no graphic and not very much of the language. So it's very mild. And honestly, it wasn't very creative in the positions. Although, to their benefit, they did bring out the Kama Sutra and they looked at it and they tried a few positions, which I thought was really unique. I was like, hey, that's really fucking cool. You brought the Kama Sutra. Good for you. Good for you. That's fantastic. I loved it. This installment actually performed oral sex on a female. This is the first installment where it shows it, and that was fantastic. So, buku points for Gideon on that one. Go Gideon. There was a lot of allusion to the sex, but not as much. A lot of allusions, but not a lot of sex. So there was a lot of buildup, and there was an allusion to some BDSM, but it was never shown. So I just gave it a 2 on the chili pepper scale. It wasn't as punchier of the romance novels I've read, but it was still a 3-star for me. And I would still recommend reading it because it wasn't bad. It just wasn't my favorite installment. So after I finished that book, I finished A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And okay, let's break this one down. All right. So first installment to the Court of Thorn and Roses series, I am reading for this for the SJM read along. I will link that announcement video down below. It's hosted by Jen over the Book Refuge. And this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So Beauty and the Beast is kind of a captor-captive story as well. So we also have that going. And this was excellent. I fucking loved this. I was maybe 20 pages away from finishing it last week. And after I finished the last 20 pages, oh my God. Yeah, solidified. 5 stars. This thing was phenomenal. So it follows Feyre and Tamlin. Feyre kills a wolf, believing that it's just a wolf, and turns out that it's a fairy. And so Tamlin comes and collects her because of this deal that, treaty that they had, which was a life for a life. And he offers her the choice that she can either stay here and die right now, or she can come with him and live with her in peace. She chooses to live. All right, there you go. The big twist, though, and I don't want to give this away, is how do I say this without giving this away? The big twist is fucking phenomenal. And when it happens, it veers from the Beauty and the Beast story and it becomes Sarah J. Maas's own fucking story. It is epic. Sarah J. Maas did not directly rip off Beauty and the Beast with the story. She paid a very, very beautiful homage to that story. And that being one of my favorite Disney stories, I was fucking stoked. But that twist made this story hers. And it was awesome. Oh my God. I fucking loved it. I literally wrote on my notes what worked. Everything Everything fucking worked in this book. It followed the original source material, but she made it her own. It was beautiful. I saw all the tie-ins. I saw the similar characteristics. I saw it was great. Even Tamlin is the only fairy that can shapeshift, and he turns into like the beast-looking creature, but he's fucking stunning. So I'm like, yes, yes, all the yes. And then that twist, when I find out about it, I'm like, whoa, what? Wait, no, Sarah did not just do that to me. Oh my God, I about died when I found that out. I was just like, huh. Fucking fantastic. Loved it. What I wrote on what didn't work, that's a dumb fucking question, because everything worked in this book. I didn't have a single problem with this book. Did not have a problem with it. I fucking love this. Sarah J. Maas is literally solidifying herself every time I read one of her books that she's becoming one of my favorite authors. And I'm just in awe of it. Like, I am loving this so much. This got only a 1.75 on the Chili Pepper scale. It is her adult series, so she has a little bit more freedom with the sex scenes, but they are not as graphic as the traditional stuff that I've been reading lately. But there is a really good usage of dominant language from Tamlin to Feyre, and I love it. The bite scene. I need a drink on that one. That was excellent. I fucking love that scene. I reread it probably like 10 times because it was so good. I was just like, I'm just gonna reread this again and again. Oh, one more time, it's fine. It's fantastic. There was only actually one sex scene, and there was very mild language in it, but there was a lot of suggestive situations. There was multiple of those. There is a scene where she is dancing in a very suggestive kind of way, and I'm like, is this starting something else that I'm not gonna know about, that I'm gonna hate in the next book? Like, nope, not gonna hate this. Gonna totally love this one. I hope what I think's gonna happen is gonna happen. Like, yes, I hope for it. Very much so. So that is literally all I have to say about this book. This book is fucking brilliant, and I loved it. I loved every single second of it. 5 stars. Cannot wait to pick up the next one. I literally just ordered it the other day because I'm like, I need it in my hands now, but I have to wait till next month to read it for the read along. I think next month we have to read it. I'm not quite for sure. I'll double check, but I have to wait because I want to stride it. I want to do it the right way, but oh my God, this was fucking epic. It was so good. 5 stars. Thank you. All right. So that was all stuff that carried over from the previous week. The new stuff for this week is I started with A Highlander Sword by Amanda Forrester, and I gave this 4 stars. This book was actually a gift to me from my coworker Amy. She did a blind date with a book, and this was the best blind date ever. This thing was awesome. I really enjoyed this. This is the first installment to the Highlands trilogy, and it is another Scottish historical romance. I love my Scots. What can I say? I do. There is an arranged marriage, and there's a miscommunication trope. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the miscommunication trope. I am not immune to it yet. I have not read enough of it to be pissed off by it. So right now, loving it, and it worked for this book. It was fantastic. I loved it. So this book, we're going to set this right here because I don't have to continue holding it. Here you go. This follows Isla and Peyton McLaren. Isla is promised the church, but her father changes his mind because she is his only heir and marries her off to Peyton to help support him and their lands. Except they are literally being told the day they're getting married. She goes in to see her father, and her father looks at Peyton, and Peyton looks at her and says, "Yeah, I'll take her." And he says, "Okay, let's go to the church." What? That's how you're telling your only child that she's getting fucking married and she's been raised since a little girl that she was gonna be a nun? Whoa. Okay, dick move, dude. Dick move. But in her defense, she does the good daughterly thing and just kind of goes with it, because what else is she gonna do? I mean, you can't put present day thoughts on historical fiction. Like it's Cardinal rule, because if you do, you're going to hate the book, and it's going to piss you off. So she goes with it. Okay, cool. But Peyton is just as shocked by the swiftness of the vows, and when they're standing at the church, there's a moment where she's looking at him and she has to say yes. And she knows she's supposed to say yes, but the look that McLaren gives her is not a look of like, I don't really give a shit if you say yes or not, you're going to marry me. It's more of please. It's, I understand this is hard. And they get lost in a moment, and he genuinely wants her to marry him in that moment. And the way Amanda Forster wrote that, it was so beautiful. I loved it. I know it was Insta. I know it was cringy, but I really, really liked that moment. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. He actually like wants her to want him. That's fantastic, because McLaren's not had the best luck with chicks. They kind of tend to use them and fuck them over. And we've already learned this. And that's why he's got major trust issues. Like, major. So for a brief moment, he loses them. And he just met her. So it's like, oh, that's kind of like that Insta, love at first sight thing, maybe. I don't know. I enjoyed that moment. But after the marriage, then they just kind of go their separate ways. And because he's got to go work on protecting the fields because they're being burned down, and Isla's got to go set up this party. But she decides to try to make the best of it, and she gets all dolled up and looks really, really nice for the wedding feast that's going to be held in the Grand Hall. And since she was a little girl, she's never been allowed to eat in the Grand Hall. She eats dinner with her mother, who is reclused away because she's sick. And McLaren doesn't know this fact. So he thinks she just bails on him and doesn't even come to the wedding feast. So he automatically thinks, oh, she's just like every other woman. I can't trust her. She's horrible. And that's where this miscommunication trope starts. And it's just layered and layered and layered and layered throughout the book. And Isla does her thing. I mean, she escapes to a convent. In the process, she gets kidnapped. Then she gets rescued. And she gets captured again. Like, this girl has like the worst fucking week of her life. And McLaren is just like emotionally torn back and forth because he wants to be the good and doting husband, but at the same time, he's like, you are fucking pissing me off right now by like leaving. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't know. The right thing is to go get you back. I get you back. And we still haven't technically consummated the marriage yet. So the entire book, he's trying to consummate the marriage. And he's constantly getting interrupted. I feel really bad for the guy. That sucked. That had to suck for him. So that is like the synopsis of the book is just a bunch of miscommunications. And because of those miscommunications, things keep happening to this couple. And if they just had a moment to be alone with each other and actually talk and open up to each other, everything would be fine. But that moment never happens. Not all because of them. It is all mostly because of outside forces. And so I enjoy this book immensely because of that kind of drama there. What worked was the plot. The fact that these two strangers literally know nothing about each other. And because they know nothing about each other, their actions do not make sense to each other at all. So therefore, they are interpreting and assuming wrong because they know nothing about each other. So that is carried throughout the entire of the plot. It's not dropped. It's not just forgotten. It's not assumed that they, perfect. It's literally the whole plot. We know nothing about each other, and now everything bad is happening to us because we won't sit down and talk to each other. So, powers of communication, people. Communication. The historical context is placed in. I thought that was great. I liked how the rules that were in place would have been the rules that were in place back then, and they followed really closely to that, especially in regards to women and their rights and what they were and were not allowed to do and whose property they were and whose property they weren't, and deals and contracts and former obligations and things like that. I really enjoyed that part of the book because being a history major, that's important to me, is that the historical context is fairly accurate. The character development, you see the development of both characters, not together, but separate. You start seeing Isla start becoming more independent of herself and more I already said that, independent, but more belief in her own skill set and her own abilities. And you see McLaren really start to drop his walls from this awful thing that happened to him and start to open up and trust and experience what it's like to actually love someone truly and have them love you back. I thought that was great. I really enjoyed one of the first attempts in the woods scene after he has rescued her. They go to consummate, and I really like how Forster wrote Isla, how nervous she was. Your first time is fucking scary. It's fucking scary. And she didn't shy away from that. She kind of started and she's like, wait, I just need more time. And he said, are you serious? I'm not stopping. And she's just like, no, and I'm not stopping you I just need a few more minutes. Like, you don't understand. Like 2 days ago, I was supposed to be a nun and now I'm not. Like, I was never supposed to experience this. And so I like the fact that she actually wrote that nervousness in, because the first time for a chick and a guy, it's intimidating. It's fucking scary. It can be. It can also be great. It can also suck, you know? And she's also never been educated on any of this because she was supposed to be a fucking nun. She doesn't know a damn thing about what's going to happen to her. Scary. And I like the fact that it was put in there. And I like the delayed gratification. I'm not normally a fan of coitus interruptus, but it worked for this book. It did. It added that layer of drama and that layer of just like, oh my God, not again. Really? But it's never because of them. It's always because of outside forces that really could not be controlled. There was only one time that it could have been controlled, and it's actually brought to the forefront because his French friend says, oh, am I interrupting something? Yes, you're fucking interrupting something. Go away. You're French. You should understand that this is a big deal. Go away. And it's like brought up, and it's humorous at that time. And I really do appreciate that all being brought to the forefront. I do enjoy a little bit of that banter sometimes. The sex scene, the one, got a 1.25 on Chili Pepper scale. I mean, it was a build up this whole book. It wasn't like super strong build up, but it was very mild, very slow, but it wasn't so slow that I was just like, God, this is fucking irritating as all get out. It was nice. It was a nice pace, a nice build up. The multiple interrupts, I've already said, it did work for this book. Most books it doesn't always work for, but this one, it definitely played to its strength and developed that drama. And the sex scene was very, very flowery in the language. There wasn't any really graphicness at all. So very, very mild sexual talk. But I really enjoyed it, and I plan on continuing with the rest of the series. So, all right. This book. All right. Let's just get into this one. All right, so while reading The Highlander Sword on Audible, I was listening to this bad boy. I chose The Silver Swan by M.O. Jones. This is the first installment to the Elite Kings Club. It is, I would say, enemies to lovers trope. And it is a multi-layer thriller and mindfuck from page 1 to the very end. And it does not stop. At all. Quick summary of this book. Madison is a new student. She carries a secret that she doesn't even know she carries, and she catches the eyes of the most popular and intense boys in school, the Elite Kings Club. They are defined as very athletic in build, very good looking, kind of Abercrombie and Fitch models, but they're not sports guys. They're just very intense, brooding, angsty teens, and it's slightly intimidating the way they're described. M.O. Jones does a pretty good job of describing how intense these fucking guys are. I would not want to be caught by these guys at all. She learns that her new stepbrother is actually one of the kings, and he's a total man whore. He is not the lead king, but he is more, and he's not even the beta, he's more of like the sociable one. Like, he's the one that can go and talk to anybody, but he's still a king. Like, I don't want to say he is one of the higher ranking ones, but he's a mouthpiece, basically. I think is what he is. But the main guy, Bishop, he targets Madison, and this is Bishop and Madison's story. And once you reach that point, this is straight up confusion from that point to the very end. And even then, what? I have highlighted in my notes. If Rob Zombie and M. Night Shyamalan wanted to write a teenage flick, a teen movie, this would be it. Rob Zombie, M. Night Shyamalan had a love trial and it was a teen movie. That's a Mo Jones, a Silver Swan. That's the best description I can give for this book. It's young kid shenanigans with dark, sinister tones, and this is the setup for a much bigger fucking story. There is 8 installments to this series, and I believe you're going to need all 8 installments to really understand what this whole storyline is about, because this is just the tip of a really fucking big, crazy, mean, scary looking iceberg. All right. After this book, I needed a cigarette, and I don't smoke. All right. I needed Jesus, and I needed therapy after this book. But I loved every fucking second of this book. This book was awesome. Oh my God. I don't even know how to really fully put into words how much I love this fucking book. This was so fucking twisted, so dark. Oh, it was fucking excellent. The sex scenes got a 4 on the Chili Pepper scale. They were graphic as fuck. They were extremely graphic. There was a lot of dubious consent in this book. A lot. And some of the scenes I did not think were dubious. Like, I was afraid for a moment, like, if this bitch writes a fucking rape scene, oh shit. Nope. Okay, we're not. But it came close a couple times. It did. Holy shit. It was close. I was like, oh no. Yeah. There is psychological mind fucking in this book. Oh my God, this thing was just, it was fucking brilliant. God, it was good. It was great. I genuinely like this book, and I don't know what that says about me. Now what works in this book is the timing of the revelations, the very few that you get, the timing she chose to give them, which, by the way, the first 85 to 90% of this book, you have no idea what really the fuck is going on. You know there's something big brewing. You know it's there. But you really don't know until the very end of the book. So that revelation, man, is it fucking worth it. Oh my God, it was so good. It was brilliant. Because once you know, and you don't unknow, and it's awesome. Mo Jones has this really unique way. Now, this is the only book I've ever read by her, but in this book, she has a really unique way of layering all of these enticements. She gives you this one, and then she adds it just a little bit later and a little bit later, and then she does this with multiple different layers of this story. So you have this rising thing going up, and you're just like, oh my God, but sometimes it's not rising evenly. So when you get a revelation here, it doesn't really quite make sense until you get this revelation, and it's just this layering effect. And then finally at that 90% mark, it's all across the gambit, and you actually start seeing what's going on, and it is fucking art. Okay, this book is stunning. I loved it. I loved it so much. I wrote clear confusion. You are confused, but you clearly know that you are missing something, but you know you actually haven't missed anything. You just haven't been given it yet. It was so creepy and annoying how she did this. I felt stupid parts of the book, but I didn't feel stupid where I hated it. I felt stupid because I felt like I should get this. I should figure out this twist. I know there's a twist. I should get it, and I'm not getting it. But I wanted it. I wanted it so fucking bad, and that's why she writes it that way, to keep you guessing and keep you on your toes. And it's just, And the sex scenes in this book, oh my God, they're so fucking good. They're so good. So fucking good. I love Bishop. He's a sadistic asshole, but I love him. I love him in this book. Loved him. What didn't work for me in this book? This was an audiobook. It was narrated by Lucy Fisher. Yes, I believe it was narrated by Lucy Fisher. And this is actually my second book from her that I've listened to. She narrated The Queen's Gambit. And her, as the lead character in The Queen's Gambit, I can't remember the character's name right now off the top of my head. oh my God, the chess chick. I can't think of her fucking name right now. Beth Harmon was great. Her deep, very monotone voice worked great for Beth Harmon. I don't think it really worked well for Madison. And she voices the entirety of the book. This is only from Madison's perspective. So I kind of wish I would have had more of like a different voice, but I still like Lucy Fisher. I just don't think that was the voice for the character of Madison, in my opinion. The age of the characters, they're in high school and they're fucking sick and twisted. Like, really? Do they have to be in high school? I mean, it adds a level of depravity and twistedness to this, but do they really have to be in high school? Really? Damn. This book leaves a lot of unanswered questions. Too many for my liking. I don't mind unanswered questions when I know that those answers need more context, but when you leave unanswered questions that I don't feel have to have a lot of context in them, I don't like that. There's one character that blatantly hates Madison. He's one of the elite kings, and we're never told why. But he legit hates this bitch. Hates her. And I don't really think it's a reason that's going to take a lot of context to explain. But then again, I don't know. This, like I said, this installment is very world building and getting your footing, but yet it is very unstable footing. You are not stable on this. It's like that when you're in those fun houses and the floor's moving underneath you. Like, that's what this book is. It's stable, but it's not. And you're kind of like, am I gonna fucking fall? Like, I feel like I'm gonna fall on this. So Madison in the beginning of the book is super defensive of her friends. Like, there's a party scene where she's like, leave us the fuck alone. And she's like all up in these guys' face. She is, get away from my friends, da, da, da. And by the end of the book, she's like, whatever, they're kind of whores. Okay, well, you're loyal. Shit. Like, that annoyed me. I don't like when girls do that. I don't like I just don't like that. I didn't like that aspect of Madison. I thought she deserved better than that characteristic. And the progression of the Elite Kings Club. We learn a little bit about the history of it, but I feel, and maybe this is just me, I don't know, I haven't read the rest of the series, but I feel like there is more to that. Like, I don't know if it's a genealogy thing or if it's like a paranormal thing, like a reincarnation thing, because at the very beginning of the book, the boys kidnap Madison and say, have you ever been here before? No, I've never been here before. And I'm wondering, thinking, like, is there like some kind of reincarnation type element with this that just hasn't been exposed yet? I don't know. And so that's where the confusion lies, because it could go both ways, or it could be just a genealogy thing from the high-ranking families. I'm not quite for sure. So yeah, that didn't work for me, but everything else in this fucking book worked for me. And even though those points weren't even that bad. I did not give this a 5-star because of the narration and the age of the characters and the Madison's personality trait switching as quickly as it did. Those are really the 3 main reasons I did not give it a 5-star. I would have given it a 5-star if those 3 things hadn't been there, even with the complete mindfuck and confusion I was suffering through the entire book, because it was that good. It was all encompassing. Like, as confused as Madison was, you are that confused as the character is. So you were like in it with the character, and I fucking love that. I love an author that can put you in the character's shoes and you feel just as fucking confused. It's great. Loved it. My final thoughts on this book, and this is actually a direct quote from my review that I wrote on Goodreads, and this is what it says. This book has so many layers it isn't even funny, except this book is funny. It's sexy, it's dark, it's twisted, it's mind-numbingly confusing, it's all-encompassing and all-engrossing, but yet horrifyingly erotic. Amo Jones did something exquisite with this book, but yet left us with room for more. The story is not over, and it ends just as confusing as it began, even once you learn what's going on. Those are my final thoughts on this book. I was asked by Monica what I thought about this book and if it's worth reading. Hell yes, this book is worth fucking reading. Read this. I loved it. If you like Dark and Twisted, you will like this. All right. And the last book I have to talk about. The last book I have to talk about that I completed was Desperate Measures by Katee Robert. I gave this 4 stars as well. This is the first installment to the Wicked Villain series. It is a Disney retelling of Aladdin. Not my favorite Disney story, so I had that going in. I'm not a big fan of Aladdin, so I was a little tempted on it. But it follows Jafar and Jasmine and is a captor-captive romance. Also with issues of scenarios of dominant and submissive, exhibitionism and voyeurism, and it definitely heavily focuses on consensual non-consent acts. And if you are not familiar with consensual non-consent is, or CNC, that is the mutual agreement between partners to be able to act as if sexual consent has been waived. And that is the Webster's Dictionary for it. I looked it up online, so that was what Webster said it meant. So basically it's, we're gonna have sex as if you've already consented, but I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want to you because you've already consented. Layman's terms. But it's understood that you have boundaries and levels. Summary of this story: Jafar has successfully overthrown Jasmine's father and is now the head man of Carver City, and after infiltrating his organization 5 years prior. Jasmine's father had sold her off into a marriage to Ali, which bumped up the coup that Jafar was planning, so it's not perfect. But for 5 years, while he was infiltrating, he developed a relationship with Jasmine, this on-again, off-again flirtation. Never physical, only verbal, and very, very submissive, dominant style flirtation. Enough that they actually developed safe words for Jasmine to say when the banter got too much for her. She could say the safe word and it would stop. Once the coup has been enacted, Jafar gives Jasmine a choice. She can either leave with nothing, or she can try to get to the front door before he catches her, and if he does, he will release her trust fund and she can leave free with all of her money. She decides to take the challenge and see if Jafar can catch her, because that's what she wants. She wants to be chased. She wants to be caught. That is where this CNC captor-captive romance begins, and this sexual exploration for Jasmine just floodgates opens. And that's where we really take off the story. We meet two characters, Hades and Meg, which become very integral parts of the story and are also focused in the next installment, which is Learn My Lesson, which I do plan on picking up because I like this book so much. The sex scenes in this book are straight 5. This thing is kinky as fuck. This is the kinkiest book I read this week, and damn if it wasn't awesome. It shows multiple forms of kink. Threesomes, daddy little role-playing, exhibitionism, voyeurism. Exhibitionism, if you're not familiar with that, that is the sexual arousal and gratification of being watched while performing sexual acts, and voyeurism is the sexual gratification and sexual arousal of watching someone, usually when they're not knowing about it, but it also works when they do know about it. The daddy and little role-playing, Jasmine refers to Jafar as daddy, and that really starts this like role-playing scenario thing that they've got going, and it's fucking awesome. It's so good to read. It was beautiful. Katee Roberts did a great job with this. We had multiple locations for the sex scene. We had a sex club, which was great. I love that. Bring that on. Graphic descriptions of every single sexual act performed in this book. Oral sex, penetration, male to female oral sex, female to female oral sex. I mean, there is nothing off limits in this book. Like, legit, nothing. She doesn't hit everything, but she hits a shit ton of stuff. Definitely heavy on the consensual non-consent. I mean, that is literally a main fiber of this story, that Jasmine wants this chase. She wants to be taken. She wants to fight. She wants to fight and she wants to lose, because when she loses, she wins. In her mind, she is embracing all this power because she chose to give up the fight or chose not to fight. It's her choice. The dirty talk in this book is stellar. It's not overly gross and in your face, but for the role playing and the scenes that are involved, it is perfect amount. They do a lot of role playing in this book, lots of role playing. So if you're into role playing and books with that, you will like this installment. Trust me, you will like this. What works in this book? The CNC, consensual non-consent. I mean, this issue is a fucked up issue. A lot of people are weird about this issue because it's like, how do I have essentially a rape fantasy without actually being raped? And that's what this kind of is. And it is handled exquisitely. When we have the conversations about the consent, it is not like a sit down, I'm going to do this. This is allowed. I'm going to do this is allowed. It's not a boring business meeting. It's still sexy. It's still fun. It still makes you feel like you're in the moment, but yet you are getting serious topics out and understood and agreement on both parties. Jafar, multiple times during their sex scenes, checks back in with her, which is the sign of a very good dom. Checking back in with his sub, making sure that she's okay and everything's fine, and still going right back into the role like nothing ever, like wasn't even a blip. And it's fantastic the way it was handled. It was excellent. I thought it was great. The safe word that Jafar and Jasmine had created during their 5-year flirtation is utilized, and you see it utilized, and you see it respected, which is a huge fucking deal. A safe word is a respect, and he uses it. As soon as the safe word comes up, everything stops, roll's done, moving on. What's going on? Do you want to talk about it? No? Okay, you come to me when you need to. I mean, it was great. It was handled so well. All these seriously taboo materials handled very, very well. Katee Robert did an excellent job doing that. It showed a discussion aspect of BDSM in a very clever and interesting way, which you don't normally see in BDSM books. All the other BDSM books I've read, they have that conversation, but it's not as interesting and unique as the way they did it with this one. Katee did a really good job with it. And then you have the idea of therapy through sexual practices and healing of past traumas exposed in this book. People use BDSM as a therapeutic form of getting through past traumas, and Jasmine is just that. She's been captive her entire life by her father, and now she's a captive by Jafar. But Jafar's captivity is helping her through the way he's doing it. Is he's giving her the power to say no, to be done with it, but only taking control when she allows it. And it's developing this sexual exploitation for her, this empowerment, this just rising star. She's no longer the caged bird in a gilded cage. She's breaking free. Maybe not physically breaking free, but mentally she is, which eventually she will be able to physically break free. Very, very, very well done. Again, dirty talk, not overly used, completely on point for what was needed. For role playing, you are playing a role, so you need a script, and the script worked. It wasn't just thrown words out there to throw words out there. The tie-ins with the traditional Aladdin story, they were there, but the way they were used, I saw how Katee Robert made it her own. I did, and I like that. I like when you could take a previous well-known story and you can twist it and make it your own with still respecting the traditional story. And no, you cannot have the exact same story. There was no genie, all right? There was no genie. There's no magic carpet ride, but you had some of the homage points there. So I really did enjoy that. And I enjoyed Jasmine's internal struggle, how it was broadcasted and showed throughout the book, and how she knew that she wanted to be free, but at the same time, she realized, like, I am scared shitless of what's outside. I've never been outside. She's completely what we call institutionalized. She has no idea how to survive in the outside world. So this internal struggle of wanting to be free and not wanting to be free because she doesn't know any better and how to deal with it, just, was done beautifully. Fantastic. Katee Roberts did a great job with it. What didn't work? The length. This thing is hella fucking short. Where's my book? This thing's only like 213 pages. Not even that, because there's some epilogues in it. So it's like 208. I wanted more. I wanted a longer story. I could have loved a previous segment of what her life was like under her father. Maybe seeing how this flirtation in his 5 years kind of built. I would have loved to see that. I would have loved to see why Ali is such a douchebag. Like, the worst thing he does to her is throw her in a trunk. But apparently he is awful and he is cruel and everything. I wanted to see that. I wanted to see why she should have been so scared and why she should have chose Jafar over Ali. I wanted to see that, and I wasn't given any of that. I don't know if I will be given that in the rest of the series, but I was not given it in this installment. I would really have liked it in this installment. I would have liked this to be a thicker book because it was really well done. Same common problem I have a lot of romances, ending just wrapped up too nicely. I know we have this nice gradual arc for Jasmine and how her character strengthens, but that ending was like, really? Really? Okay. All right. Sure. Yeah, I would have rather you extended this just a smidge because it would have been a lot better that way. Final thoughts. Loved it. Plan on continuing with the series. I'm interested to see how all the installments are tied together. because we do meet Meg and Hades, and they are the next couple for the next installment, which I do plan on picking up and listening or reading as well. So this book got, if I haven't told you, 4 stars. Yeah, 4 stars. And it didn't get a 5-star because of the ending. It's just a thing I have. I don't like shitty endings. It's not shitty. It's just, it wraps up too nicely. Like, give me more meat, give me more drama, not, you've got the chops, give it to me. Today I did start Alien Night Disaster Blind Date is on Audible, but I don't really have much to say about it right now because I literally just started it, and I also am starting Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. So I will talk to you guys all next week about those installments, and I hope you guys had a great time. I hope you enjoy the books. If you want to see a further review on any of these books, please let me know, and I will see you guys all soon with another video. I am going to go play some Magic with my husband now. Bye, guys.